some of them may get shot down in the future, or it may just take a while to get them all worked out. But so far I've not had. I had my original outline for Survivor's Quest was shot down, but then came up with entirely new, which is what the book was, and it was better for that. But there have been no projects per se. Well, I've got one that Shelley really likes, and we've got that on hold for the moment, so that may die eventually, but it may not.
Warhorse sequel.
A Warhorse sequel, okay. I've also had from my Conquerors books, people like a second Conquerors series, and there are also people periodically who ask for another Icarus Hunt book, which I would like to do if I can come up with a story for it. That's the other thing we professionals try not to do, is write the same story again just because somebody's throwing us money for it.
That is the Hollywood model, but we don't like to do it.
Yeah, and it's just disappointing to everybody involved. You don't want to do that. You want something original with the same. I mean, that's what we're doing. Star Wars, what Aaron was saying, doing something, finding a new corner, a new approach, a new idea. We've got to do. We don't want to just tell Return of the Jedi again or something like that.
Y'all have seen this a lot out of Hollywood, where there will be a successful movie and they decide to do a sequel, and you look at the sequel and they have redone the original. In fact, they've reset all the characters to zero.
Yeah.
Disappointing, jettisoning all your emotional investment in those characters to put them back where they were at the start of the first one, so they can go through the same events again. We don't like to do that.
Or what's worse, you've done a satisfying character arc, and then you just freeze them because we want to shoot things up some more. Let's see, the Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
One of my favorite bad examples of that. Good character development in the first one, and then just kind of static to the whole thing through the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to do that if possible. Yeah.
If you could go back and rewrite any one of the 6 films, original, prequel, and like put your own twist, your own creative liberty on it, what would it be?
Can we do a movie's worth of changes spread out upon about 3 of them?
One of my disappointments with Revenge of the Sith was that every one of its story elements funneled into the beginning of A New Hope. There's nothing that leads off into a new branch and says, here, this is a place to look in the future that we may be exploring. It was all narrowing a focus rather than broadening a focus. And if I had the opportunity to rewrite Revenge of the Sith so that it broadened the universe a little more rather than narrowing it, that would be my choice. I mean, there are people who love it and people who don't, but I don't think there's anything that I would be doing in the course of this kind of rewrite that would hurt it in the minds of people who love it, and I think the people who don't like it the way it is would enjoy what I have in mind.
Most of my stuff would be little 10-second snippets throughout the various movies. I think the most irritating thing about Jar Jar is he never grows. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you had at that climactic scene where they're all surrounded, if he was the one who said they need more time, picked up a blaster and started shooting droids, now he has, it's a similar situation to Han waiting just to see if he's needed at Yavin.
Yeah.
There's some maturity, there's some character growth, and you almost have that when he's talking to Amidala and talking about we still got a good army. You can almost see he is starting to realize that there's a universe outside himself that he needs to deal with. And then it got destroyed. Second thing I would change would be the fight between Dooku and Yoda. Instead of, we've already seen all the acrobatics in the first movie with Darth Maul. I think a nice contrast would have been Dooku attacking and Yoda not moving a muscle except to deflect it. Instead of doing all of those, he doesn't have to move.
It would show mastery. It
would show mastery, and you could have some great shots of Dooku's face as it suddenly, oh shoot. There are some scenes from the original, the Disney Zorro series. There are a couple of times in that series where Zorro is battling somebody and he's pushed against the wall. He sits down on the chair for a couple of strokes and then stands back up. Same sort of thing. I don't have to stand up to defeat you. And Yoda, I don't have to move to win this one. And then if you want to have him get all acrobatic with Palpatine, okay, but we need the contrast in there. Little bits and pieces like that are things I would tweak as I went along. But I like your idea of have some threads going out. I think the only one I can think of is the implication that Order 66 didn't get all of them.
Yeah.
And that I presume was set there so he could work on live action TV if he ever does. We had one over here and then we'll get to you.
All right. I'm curious, Mrs. Zahn, where did the concept of the Ysalamiri come from, and are they connected to the rest of the galaxy via the Force, or are they separated from it entirely?
No, the Ysalamiri are not disconnected from the Force. What they're doing is suppressing it to a level Jedi can't access. You also see that the Vornskers are hunting through the Force, and they can actually do it. It's more like a camouflage against the Vornskers. So it's something Jedi can't really, it's not really, they're stopping the Force. Thrawn says that, but Thrawn is actually wrong. Bear that in mind. The characters don't always know what they're talking about in our books. Or not entirely. And as a functional matter, it's exactly the same. Jedi can't work with a Salamir there, so fine, doesn't matter how they're doing it. But it's really more of a Force camouflage type of thing, just a suppression. So they are not disconnected from the Force per se.
Yeah, Tim brings up an interesting point that's off on a tangent, though, which is that Star Wars fans in general don't like for there to be unreliable narrators, and writers do. And so you'll have characters say things that are wrong, and the readers will, at least for a brief amount of time, assume that it is absolute truth because it came out of the mouth of a character or was floating around in his head as they were reading it. But we have characters who are deluded, who are wrong, and who lie, and it's just the way it is.
Your best example of that is The Usual Suspects. And I like the fact they keep bringing you back to his interrogation to remind you he is telling this story. That's all we really know. The nice pictures that we're seeing on the screen are his version. May or may not be accurate. Yeah.
Just to go back to the question about rewriting the original films, now knowing what happens in the films, are there any of your stories that you would think about rewriting parts of to fit in with what we know from the full saga?
Everybody who did a Boba Fett story wishes they could. Bill Slavicsek had a great analogy many years ago when he was working at West End Games. He said, all of us gamers, novelists, comic book writers are being allowed to play in George Lucas's driveway. If when he backs his truck out, he runs over something we've done, we have no cause to complain. In especially the original Thrawn trilogy, the people at Lucasfilm were so paranoid about what George might or might not be thinking about doing someday, they essentially, in that analogy, made me put all my stuff right at the edge of the driveway. They wouldn't let me expand into the middle where I really wanted to go. And as a result, his truck winged a couple of my toys, but didn't really damage them. The only real problem was they changed when the Clone Wars took place. So there's a 15-year discrepancy. We were given one timeline, and by the time Lucas changed his mind, it was too late. Heir was already out. I think Dark Force may have been at the printers, and it was too late to change anything. So that's about the only problem. Everything else that looks like it may be contradicted by the movies, I can hand wave away. The biggest one people are saying, pointed out, is Mara tells Luke that letting him escape at Bespin was how Vader lost his hand. Well, I can hand wave that one as maybe the Emperor took the hand away again, and and Mara simply didn't realize that wasn't the first time he had lost it. So my theory is if you can hand wave a reasonable explanation, it's not wrong. That sound reasonable to you?
It does indeed. We are masters of spackle.
Yes. Any comments of yours on that?
No, I've been fairly fortunate in that most of what I've done has been untouched by the prequel trilogy. There were some things in my New Jedi Order novels that did not make it to print because the movies, which were then still being produced, caused these details to be yanked. And I think that they could probably have been restored, years after the fact. Now that the prequels are done, but don't have to be. So, but I'm pretty content. I think that the older the archaeological level of where you've written, the more likely it is there's some stuff that has been obsoleted, and it would be nice to go back and tweak it. But it's just a matter of tweaking, and in any case, the readership as a whole tends to forgive us for these discrepancies because they know where they came from.
Yeah, people ask when they announced the 20th anniversary Heir to the Empire, was I going to go back and change anything? And no, it's a historical document. I don't want to. Well, this is the history of what the book was when I wrote it.
Yeah.
And I will, in the annotations, I'll point out where either things have been superseded or things have been tweaked a little bit or whatever. Just I'll put those in the annotations, but I don't want to change the original story because it's in its era.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with you.
Probably more for you, Mr. Zahn. How did you get the ideas of Grand Admiral Thrawn in interpreting art? And also, how do you feel about people killing off your characters?
So many have been done lately too, haven't they? The art thing, I really wish I could remember. It just popped out as I was developing the character.
I really love that concept.
Oh, thank you. I really don't know where it came from. It just seemed that it's a semi-mystical Force type of thing that no one else understands. You know, like Jedi, the only who understand the Force, but it works really well for him. I really wish I could answer that. As to killing off the characters, they are all owned lock, stock, and barrel by Lucasfilm. If Lucasfilm approves, we know this going in, we suck it up and, man up. And I mean, that's basically what it's a like it or lump it situation. If you're not going to be happy with what's done with your character later on, don't sign the contract, go write your own stuff. That is basically how it boils down.
Yeah, you have to develop a certain emotional distance from your characters once you've written him. Once he's in the can, he's vulnerable. I'm still waiting for somebody to kill one of mine. When's that going to happen, damn it?
Well, I could offer. Yeah, we had somebody back here. Okay, you.
All right. You said in past interviews, Mr. Zahn, that well, first of all, I think you've done a great job capturing the feel of the original movies. But you said in past interviews that one thing that helped you was that you had recorded the movies on cassette and listened to it on drives. Did you just rely on that alone in capturing the tones of the movies, or how else did you absorb the atmosphere so you can?
It wasn't that I relied on that. It was the fact that I had done it so many times.
Okay.
The background for those who don't know, we discovered early on when our son was here instead of way up there, that if he'd seen a movie 2 or 3 times, we could audio tape the movie and just set a tape recorder up to the speaker and play the videotape, the TV speaker. We could audio tape the whole movie, play it on long car trips, and he could sit back there, play with his Legos, and be nice and quiet and happy visualizing the movie. So however many times I'd seen the original trilogy, I'd heard them, X plus 10, because I'd heard them and because I'd listened to all that without any of the distraction of the visuals. By the time I started writing the Thrawn trilogy, I had a pretty good feel for how, the cadence of Han, Luke, and Leia, how they talked, just the sense of that. So it wasn't that I was relying on it, it was just an extra something in my brain when I started writing.
It became muscle memory.
Very much, yeah. I could hear the voices, I could hear the pattern of speech, and I could just write it out. And then I had to